April 28, 2025, 60 million Europeans in Spain and Portugal woke up to what Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called a nationwide blackout of this scale that had never happened before. ATMs stopped. Phone networks went dark. The cause? Still officially unknown after multiple investigations. Within hours, 8 people were dead from entirely preventable causes, not from the blackout itself, from not being prepared for it. September 19, 2025, a coordinated cyber attack simultaneously crippled check-in systems at London Heathrow, Brussels Airport, and Berlin Brandenburg, the Collins aerospace infrastructure that multiple countries depend on. 35,000 passengers stranded at Brussels alone. 140 flights cancelled. Recovery took days, not hours. This wasn't a random failure. European security analysts described it as a precision strike. Multiple countries, one system, surgical timing. Right now, as you watch this, a crisis is unfolding that makes both of those look like a rehearsal. Iran has enriched uranium to 84% purity. One technical step from a nuclear weapon, confirmed by the International Atomic Energy Agency. The United States has repositioned 2 carrier strike groups simultaneously in the Eastern Mediterranean and Persian Gulf, something that hasn't happened since the eve of the Iraq War in 2003. Iranian-backed Houthi forces have already attacked over 100 commercial vessels in the Red Sea. That's 12% of global trade, including the oil, food, and electronics that supply European cities, being rerouted around Africa, adding weeks to every delivery and 30% to every price. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage carrying 1/5 of the world's oil, is now one decision away from closure. Do you see the pattern? First, we learned that European infrastructure can fail completely and without warning. Then, we learned that sophisticated actors can take down multiple European systems simultaneously with surgical precision. And now, we are watching, in real time, the geopolitical chain that every European intelligence agency has been warning about for 3 years begin to connect. Here's the part that should frighten you most. Europe entered this moment at its weakest point in decades. European Commission President von der Leyen has publicly stated that ongoing conflicts are undermining the European economy. France's Macron told Europeans they must, by his exact words, regain control of their own destiny. And NATO's Supreme Allied Commander has issued internal warnings about a window of maximum vulnerability through 2027. They know what's coming. The question is, do you? Now stop for a moment. Look at the people you love most in this world. Your partner, your children, your parents. When the coordinated attacks escalate, when power grids fail, and transportation shuts down, and communications go dark simultaneously, will you be their rock or their regret? The brutal truth is this. In the first 72 hours of any major crisis, nobody is coming to save your family. Not your government. Not the EU. Not NATO. You are the only emergency plan your family has. And the Spain-Portugal blackout, the Brussels cyber attack, and the Strait of Hormuz have just proven it. This is not next year's problem. This is today's problem. Let me share the documented intelligence that European governments are publicly reporting, but most families aren't paying attention to. Fact 1. Europol's EU SOCTA 2025 report revealed that criminal organizations now use methods traditionally associated with state-backed actors, including coordinated cyber attacks against critical infrastructure. These aren't random hackers. These are military-grade operations targeting European civilians. Fact 2. The EU's cybersecurity blueprint, adopted in 2025, warns that the threat of a possible large-scale incident causing significant disruption to critical infrastructure demands heightened preparedness at all levels. This isn't preparation for a future crisis. This is preparation for an imminent one. Fact 3. The April 2025 Spain-Portugal blackout proved that even major European infrastructure can fail completely and unexpectedly. Despite multiple investigations, the cause is still officially unknown. If they can't explain what happened, how can they prevent it from happening again? Fact 4. Iran now has the most sophisticated proxy warfare network in history. And it is already targeting the economic arteries that keep European civilization running. The Houthis in Yemen have attacked over 100 commercial vessels in the Red Sea. The oil, electronics and food supplies that feed European cities are being rerouted around the entire continent of Africa, adding 30% to the cost of every shipment. Hezbollah, armed with over 150,000 rockets, sits 200 kilometers from the Suez Canal. One escalation event, and that choke point closes. You don't need missiles to bring a continent to its knees. You just need to cut the supply lines, and those supply lines are already under attack. Fact 5. 97% of European families have done absolutely nothing to prepare for the critical first 72 hours. The window when government help statistically cannot reach them. Not 72 hours from now. 72 hours from the moment crisis hits. That's when you're on your own, and that window is everything. My name is Marcus Thiel. For 18 years I worked as a crisis preparedness coordinator for the European Civil Protection Mechanism, the EU body responsible for coordinating emergency response across member states when national systems are overwhelmed. I've been in rooms where the lights don't come back on. Let me tell you about the moment that changed everything for me. It was July 15th, 2021. The Ahr Valley in Western Germany. You may remember the headlines. Catastrophic flooding. 135 people dead. Entire towns like Schuld and Altenahr simply erased. The Ahr River rose 9 meters in a single night. I was part of the Civil Protection Coordination team, deployed to the region within 48 hours. What I saw there, I still think about. Not the destruction. Destruction I'd seen before. What I saw was the gap. On one side, a 74-year-old woman in Bad Neuenahr-Ahrweiler, who had lived through the 1970 flood. She had a plan. She knew exactly where to go, what to take, who to call. She had water, she had medication. She had a hand-cranked radio. She had documents in a waterproof bag. She walked out of that flood with her family intact. On the other side, families in brand new houses with every modern appliance, who had absolutely nothing ready. No torch, no water, no meeting point, no plan. Their phones died. They had no idea where their children were for 14 hours. Same flood, same street, completely different outcomes. Not because of money, not because of age, not because of luck, because one family had a plan and the other hadn't thought they'd need one. I've been in the Bergamo Emergency Coordination Centre during the first week of March 2020, when northern Italy became the first European epicenter of COVID, and the health system collapsed faster than any model had predicted. I watched the Italian Civil Protection Agency scramble to manage a crisis the official playbooks hadn't prepared for. I have documented the Kyivstar cyber attack of December 2023, when 24 million Ukrainians lost all mobile communications for 68 hours. I interviewed families on both sides of that event, the ones who kept functioning and the ones who fell apart. The difference every single time came down to one thing. Had they ever thought about what they would do? 18 years, 14 countries, 9 major crisis events across the European continent. The families who made it through were never the strongest, the richest, or the best connected. They were the ones who had a plan. Not a bunker, not years of supplies, not military training, a realistic, practical plan made in advance for the first 72 hours. That's what separates the families who stay together and functional from the ones who fall apart. I left the European Civil Protection Mechanism in 2024 because I realized that official crisis response will always arrive too late for individual families. The only way to change that, the only way to actually protect people, was to put the knowledge directly in their hands. That's why I built the Europe Crisis Guide. This is the guide I wish every European family had before the lights go out. Let me be brutally honest about what European intelligence agencies are seeing, because your government won't tell you the plain truth. Infrastructure attacks. The September 2025 airport cyber attack proved that sophisticated actors can simultaneously paralyze transportation networks across multiple European countries. Collins Aerospace's systems collapsed, affecting London, Brussels, and Berlin simultaneously, demonstrating that when a critical infrastructure provider is compromised, cascading failures hit millions of people across borders within minutes. Recovery took days. Emergency services were overwhelmed. stranded populations couldn't be managed. The Iran-Hormuz energy shock. The Strait of Hormuz carries 1/5 of the world's oil. Qatar's LNG exports, which power a significant portion of European heating and electricity, pass through it. One Iranian military action lasting 72 hours doesn't need to close it permanently. It only needs to create uncertainty. Markets respond to uncertainty with immediate violent price movements. European gas futures can spike 40% in hours. Oil hits €100 plus per barrel. Manufacturing halts. Logistics cease, and your local supermarket, which carries less than 72 hours of inventory at any given time, goes dry before the crisis is even officially declared. Communications blackout. Undersea cable cutting is not theoretical. It is happening in the Baltic Sea right now. When communications infrastructure is targeted simultaneously, families lose contact with each other, emergency services become unreachable, and coordination becomes impossible. Financial system disruption. European banking systems have been targeted multiple times. When digital payment systems fail, ATMs go offline and card readers stop working. Cash becomes the only currency. Most European families keep less than €200 in cash at home. That's 36 hours of purchasing power, if stores can even accept it. Medical emergency crisis. The European Commission's Healthcare Cybersecurity Action Plan, released in early 2025, specifically addresses hospital vulnerability. When medical systems are compromised, prescription medications become unavailable, and emergency care is severely limited. The hard truth: when these events converge, and European intelligence confirms the probability is rising, not falling, the first 72 hours will determine everything. Now you might be thinking, my government will handle this. That's what taxes are for. Let me show you what European governments are actually saying. Sweden, the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, mailed an emergency guide to every household in the country. Title: If crisis or war comes. Their recommendation: prepare to be self-sufficient for at least 72 hours, potentially much longer. Germany. The Federal Office of Civil Protection published guidelines recommending citizens stockpile 10 days of food and water. The German Interior Minister said publicly, "We must face the reality that the state cannot immediately help everyone in a national emergency." Finland issued guidance recommending 28 days of supplies, explicitly referencing hybrid warfare scenarios. Finland shares a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia. The European Parliament officially urging all European citizens to prepare personal 72-hour survival plans for themselves and their families. Think about that. The same institution that should be providing emergency services is telling citizens they need to be self-sufficient. That's not a recommendation, that's an admission. And here's the evidence from the April 2025 blackout that nobody wants to talk about. Even government facilities lost power. The Ministry of Defense and Navy headquarters were still without power on April 29th, despite general restoration efforts. If the government can't keep their own military headquarters operational during a simple grid failure, what does that tell you about their ability to help your family? During the 2022 to 2023 European energy crisis, government response reached most affected families in 72 to 96 hours. 72 to 96 hours. 3 to 4 days when you are completely, entirely on your own. The families who had prepared, they barely noticed. The families who hadn't, those are the stories you don't hear about on the news. This is exactly why I created the Europe Crisis Guide, the only civilian preparedness system built specifically for the threats facing European families right now. This isn't outdated American survival content, copy-pasted with a different flag. This isn't generic emergency advice written before coordinated cyber warfare existed. This is a meticulously researched, Europe-specific system, developed with input from emergency management professionals, tested against real European crisis conditions, and structured around what I call the EURO method. 4 pillars: sequential, practical, designed for the reality most Europeans live in, which means apartments, urban environments, and limited storage space. E, essentials foundation, everything your family needs for the first 72 hours. Water, food, power, warmth, communication, designed for a standard European apartment on a realistic budget. U. Urban resilience. How to navigate a European city during a crisis. Which routes are compromised? Where community resources concentrate. How to communicate when networks are overloaded or down. R. Resource network. How to identify, locate and access wild food sources across every major European ecological zone. This is knowledge your grandparents had. It's knowledge most Europeans have lost. And it's the difference between managing a 2-week disruption and managing a 2-month one. O. Operational security. How to protect your family, your supplies, and your information during social instability. Practical, legal, proportionate. Not paranoia, prudence. Most families complete the full system in 3 to 4 weekends. You don't need special skills. You don't need a large budget. You don't need rural property. You need this guide, a plan, and a few weekends. Let me show you exactly what's inside the Europe Crisis Guide. Phase 1. The critical first 6 hours. This is when coordinated attacks typically begin, and when most families are caught completely off guard. The guide includes immediate assessment protocols to determine which systems are compromised, family communication procedures that work when cell towers are jammed or overloaded, critical supply access strategies, how to move and secure what you need before panic buying depletes local resources, the exact 22-item emergency kit that fits in a standard kitchen cupboard for under €150. Phase 2. Hours 6 to 24. Stabilization. Extended communications protocols using methods that function even when internet and cellular networks are completely down. Emergency supply access points. Most people don't know exist in European cities. Family security when law enforcement is overwhelmed or unavailable. The backup power system that works in a European apartment. Legal, silent, EU safety approved. Phase 3. Hours 24 to 72. Long-term positioning. Advanced food preservation techniques that extend your supplies far beyond 72 hours. Water purification methods, specifically designed for European urban environments. Psychological management strategies to keep your family cohesive under extreme stress. Country-specific vulnerability assessments and response protocols. The Wild Food Module. Europe's most underrated survival asset. Here's what separates the Europe Crisis Guide from every other preparedness resource available. Most crisis scenarios aren't about the first 72 hours. They're about week 3, week 6, month 3, the point where your stockpile is running low, supply chains haven't recovered and you need to supplement. Across Europe, from the Atlantic coast to the Mediterranean basin, from Nordic forests to Central European wetlands, there are hundreds of edible wild plants that sustained European populations through famines, wars, and occupations for centuries. Your grandparents' knew these plants. That knowledge is largely gone. The Wild Food Module brings it back. The 40 highest calorie wild plants found across European temperate zones, full identification guides, seasonal maps, preparation instructions. The 12 most nutritious wild greens available in every European country, including common weeds in parks and roadsides that contain more vitamin C than oranges. Medicinal wild plants that can substitute for common medications when pharmacies are empty. Region-specific plant guides for Western, Central, Mediterranean and Nordic Europe. The critical toxic look-alike guide, because one misidentification can be fatal. And this is the chapter that could save your life. I know what you might be thinking. Is this actually proven? According to the WHO European Health Report 2024, families with proper emergency preparedness consistently showed better outcomes during the 2021 Central European floods. While unprepared families struggled with basic necessities, those with 72-hour supplies and communication plans maintained stability and made better decisions under stress. The European Commission's 2025 Preparedness Union Strategy officially recommends that all European households maintain essential supplies for a minimum of 72 hours. This isn't survival extremism. This is official EU policy. The April 2025 blackout showed a clear pattern. Families who had generators beforehand used them safely. The 8 deaths were entirely preventable. The difference between those families and the ones who were fine? Preparation. Made weeks before the crisis, not during it. 58% of Finnish families now maintain emergency supplies at home. Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have all launched major civilian preparedness campaigns. This isn't fringe behavior anymore. This is the new standard, and most European families are still behind it. Here's what European families who already have the guide are saying. I'm a project manager in Munich. I thought I was too rational for prepper material, but this reads like a business continuity plan for your family. I implemented the 72-hour foundation in about 4 hours. For the first time in years, I'm not anxious every time I check the news. Thomas B., Munich, Germany. After the 2022 energy crisis, my husband and I knew we needed to act, but everything we found was American. None of it applied to our flat in Lyon. The Europe Crisis Guide is completely different. Practical, European, affordable. The difference between before and after is hard to describe. We just feel safer. Marie-Claire D., Lyon, France. The wild foraging module alone is worth 10 times the price. I grew up in Poland and my grandmother knew all these plants. I'd completely lost that knowledge. This guide gave it back. With modern identification photos and clear instructions, my kids can now identify 15 edible plants in our local park. Marcin K., Poznan, Poland. I work in cybersecurity. The threat sections are frighteningly accurate. These aren't hypothetical scenarios, they're describing what's already happening. If you have any doubts about relevance, just read any ENISA report from the last 12 months. Then read this guide. James M., London, UK. Now, I understand if you have reservations. Let me address the most common ones directly. This seems extreme. I don't want to become a doomsday prepper. I completely understand. And I agree with you. This isn't about bunkers or living in fear. This is emergency management. The same discipline used by corporations, hospitals, and governments. The difference between being prepared and being paranoid is simple. Prepared people have options when crisis hits. The Europe Crisis Guide gives you those options. My government and insurance will take care of emergencies. That's exactly what European governments are telling you not to rely on. And here's something most people don't know. During the European energy crisis, insurance companies specifically excluded coverage for acts of war and cyber terrorism. Your insurance policy almost certainly has the same exclusions. And government emergency services average 72 to 96-hour response times during the energy crisis, which is precisely why European governments are now officially urging citizens to prepare for 72-hour self-sufficiency. They know their own limitations. I live in an apartment. Is this really for me? 70% of Europeans live in apartments. Every protocol in this guide was designed for apartment living. Space constraints, shared building access, noise restrictions, building regulations. If you have a 60 square meter flat in a city centre, this guide was written for you specifically. I don't have time for this. The Essential Foundation takes one afternoon. Not a weekend, not a week. One afternoon. After that, you're significantly more prepared than 95% of your neighbours. What if nothing bad happens? Then you've built skills that never expire, created a safety net that protects your family from job loss, illness, or any local disruption. And you've given yourself the psychological gift of not being afraid every time you watch the news. The cost of being prepared when nothing happens is minimal. The cost of being unprepared when something does happen is everything. When you secure your copy of the Europe Crisis Guide today, here is exactly what you receive. The complete Europe Crisis Guide, physical hard copy, shipped directly to you. Because when the power goes out and your devices fail, exactly like what happened to 60 million people in Spain and Portugal, you will still have access to every word of this guide. When you're off-grid, when batteries are dead, when screens won't turn on, that physical book is priceless. Value, €69. Plus, the complete digital edition for instant access right now, before your physical copy arrives. Value, €47. Free bonus 1. Crisis-proof power. How to maintain power, light and communication during grid failure. Covers generator protocols, battery banks, solar backup and car power solutions. Real-world European scenarios throughout. Value, €37. Free bonus 2, emergency medical response. The 30 most critical medical situations in crisis conditions, written for people with no medical training. What to do when pharmacies are closed, ambulances are delayed, and hospitals are overwhelmed. Value, €37. 4 resources. Total value, €190. Your price today, €69. Less than the cost of a single night in a hotel during an emergency evacuation. Less than 1 month of a premium streaming service. A fraction of what emergency preparedness consulting would cost. Professional emergency preparedness consulting, €2,000 to €4,000 for a basic family assessment. Emergency preparedness courses, €800 to €1,500 across Europe. Emergency supplies purchased during an actual crisis, 3 to 5 times their normal price. During the April Spain-Portugal blackout, gas generators and battery radios flew off shelves at premium prices. The families who already had them stayed comfortable. The families rushing to buy them paid double, if they could find them at all. €69. 4 resources, 1 payment. Yours forever. This isn't a purchase. It's an insurance policy for your family's survival. But unlike insurance that pays out after something bad happens, this prevents the bad things from affecting your family in the first place. I'm so confident in this complete bundle that I'm offering something almost unprecedented for preparedness materials, an unconditional 60-day guarantee. Here's exactly how it works. Secure your complete package today, physical hard copy, digital guide, all 4 bonuses. Implement the protocols with your family. Assemble the recommended supplies. Create your 72-hour plan. If within 60 days, you don't feel significantly more prepared, more confident, and more in control of your family's safety than you do right now, email us. You get every cent back, no questions, no hoops, no delays. I can make that guarantee because I've never had to honor it, not once. Because the families who engage with this guide don't ask for refunds. They send us emails, but the guarantee is there, unconditional, 60 days, because the last thing I want is for concern about the cost to stop you from starting today. Here's the truth about risk. The only real risk is waiting too long and trying to prepare after everyone else has already realized they need the same things when supplies become scarce and expensive. That's the risk, not this. I need to be honest with you about timing, because it directly affects whether this decision matters. European intelligence agencies are warning that major infrastructure attacks are likely to escalate before 2027. The threat environment is not stabilizing. It is deteriorating. Russian hybrid warfare operations have quadrupled since 2023. The Iran-US-Israel situation is not resolving. It is escalating. The undersea cable cutting continues. The cyber attacks are increasing in frequency and precision. But here's the thing about preparation. It only works before the crisis. The families who made it through the April 2025 blackout calmly were not the ones who tried to prepare in April. They were the ones who prepared in February and March, when everything was still available, affordable and calm. There is a window of time when preparation is easy, affordable and effective. That window is now. Not when you hear sirens, not when the news is scaring you, not when your neighbor is calling asking if you have any bottled water. Now, while you're calm, while supplies are available, while you have time to do it right. The €69 complete bundle, physical book, digital guide, all 4 bonuses, is available today at this price. When the next update incorporating the latest NATO threat assessment goes live, the price increases. Current purchasers are grandfathered in permanently and receive all future updates at no additional cost. But the most important timing issue isn't the price. It's this. The families who prepare now, while resources are available and supply chains are functioning, will have massive advantages over families who try to prepare during an active crisis, when supplies are scarce, expensive, and sometimes simply unavailable. The security situation in Europe isn't just deteriorating. It's accelerating towards scenarios that will test every family's preparedness. When the first coordinated attack hits your region, when the power goes out, communications fail, and emergency services are overwhelmed, you will have exactly 2 choices. You'll either be prepared, with proven protocols, essential supplies, and a family that knows what to do, or you'll be one of the millions of unprepared families waiting desperately for help that can't come fast enough. Your family is counting on you to make the right choice. Click the button below now. You'll be taken to a secure order page. Your order is processed through SSL encryption, bank-level security. Within 60 seconds, you'll have instant digital access to everything. The physical hard copy will be shipped directly to your address. The complete Europe Crisis Guide, physical hard copy, shipped to your door. The complete Europe Crisis Guide, instant digital access. Free bonus, crisis-proof power, digital ebook. Free bonus, emergency medical response, digital ebook. You can start reading in the next 60 seconds. You can have the essential foundation in place by this weekend. And you can go to sleep tonight, knowing that whatever happens in Washington, in Tel Aviv, in Tehran, in Brussels, or in the power station serving your neighborhood, your family will be prepared. Remember, when a crisis strikes, the difference between tragedy and survival is often just 72 hours of proper preparation. Don't leave your family's safety to chance, government response times, or the hope that these attacks won't reach your area. You know the threats are real. You know government response capabilities have limits. You know your family deserves better than hoping for the best. Take control now, while you still can. Click below, get prepared, because when everyone else is panicking, your family will be prepared. Still watching? Let me leave you with one thought. In 2003, a war started. In 2008, the financial system collapsed. In 2015, 1 million refugees crossed European borders. In 2020, a virus shut down the world. In 2022, Russia launched the largest land war in Europe since 1945. In 2023, a single regional conflict triggered the most volatile shipping and energy disruption since the Gulf War. In 2025, European airports went dark. Every one of those events was unthinkable the day before it happened. Every single one changed the daily lives of ordinary European families. And every time, without exception, the people who came through intact were the people who had some preparation. Not perfect preparation, not expensive preparation, just some. The Europe Crisis Guide is your sum. Click the button. Do it now. Your family is worth it.